Hello everyone, Tech1421 here. Welcome back to another episode of Pokemon TCG Online Tournament, where I showcase a deck and then I go ahead and play a tournament with it, see how well I do on the Pokemon TCG Online version of the game. So the new Pokemon X and Y expansion set came out. It's called Breakthrough. It came out in early November. Might have even been the 1st of November. I'm not quite sure when it came out, but it was early November nonetheless, so it hasn't been that long since this new set came out. And we heard about it back in, I want to say, like July or so is when it first got showcased. It came out in Japan, and people got to see the cards. And there was 170 cards in this set, which is quite a lot. And there's a few cards that I kind of overlooked on my first time through, and Gengar was one of them. And we're going to make a Gengar Greninja deck. And what Gengar does, the first attack isn't that great. The second attack is what you're going to be looking at. It's a Stage 2 Psychic-type Pokemon. 130 HP, has free retreat, which is always nice, and it has a weakness to Dark, which is a pretty bad weakness at this point. Anything that's weak to Psychic and Psychic type is not very good, and anything that is weak to Dark at this point in this stage of the game is not that great either, because Yveltal is a pretty powerful deck at this point, and it hits for a lot of damage anyways, and the fact that we're weak to Dark does not very well for us, unfortunately. But nonetheless, we're looking at the attack Creepshow for a Psychic and a Colorless Energy. If your opponent's active Pokemon has 3 or more damage counters on it, that Pokemon is knocked out. Yeah, that's what I thought when I first read that. So it's kind of crazy. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about using Gengar and Creepshow to your advantage, and I thought about a lot of different ways you can do this. And I thought about different stadiums, such as Frozen City, where you put 2 damage counters on a Pokemon whenever you attach energy from your hand, and if they're not a Plasma-type Pokemon. So that'd be kind of good to get damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon. For the most part, for most decks, I'm not saying all decks, but for most decks, you're going to attach energy from your hand to power up your Pokemon. There are ways around this for a lot of different decks, such as Virizion Genesect, or any type of steel deck nowadays uses Bronzong from the discard pile. So there's ways around this, so you're not necessarily going to get damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon if you use Frozen City. There's Team Magma's Secret Base, where every time you put down a basic Pokemon, you have to put 2 damage counters on that. Well, obviously, at the very beginning of the game, when you put down your first basic Pokemon, and maybe if you go second, they might even put some more Pokemon down, you're not really getting that much out of Team Magma's Secret Base until you actually put the card down. So I didn't really like to go that route either. There's Laser Verbank, but you only have 4 lasers, so, and then possibly more if you use cards like Sableye to Junk Hunt, or use a Dowsing Machine or something like that to get it back from the discard pile. But even then, you really want to be using Dimensional Valley in this deck, because Dimensional Valley, where can I find it? There it is. Each Psychic Pokemon's attacks, both yours and your opponent's, cost 1 colorless less, and of course Creepshow is for a Psychic and a colorless, so you can only attack. You can attack for just 1 Psychic energy, which is very nice. And as I said, you have free retreat, which is very cool indeed. So I chose to go the Dimensional Rally route, and I also considered using a lot of different Pokemon. We might see these decks, I might cover these decks later in the future, but I didn't think they're as good. We have Crobat, the Crobat line. You could do like a 4-4-4 line with Zubat, Golbat, and Crobat. They have abilities when you put them into play from your hand that you can put with Golbat 2 on any Pokemon of your choosing, and then with Crobat you can put 3 damage counters on any Pokemon of your choosing. So that's pretty good. You can see how that kind of goes well with Gengar. The problem there is you're running 2 Stage 2 lines, and that can be really hectic, and you might not be able to get out everything you want. You might not be able to get the Pokemon you need for that particular turn in order to hit for big damage with Creepshow. So I also considered using Fortress, like a 4-4 line of Fortress. Fortress, whenever you put him into play from your hand to evolve him, put him into play, you get to put 1 damage counter on all the Pokemon in play, except for yours, only your opponent, of course. And then I also considered even using Flygon. In between turns, you put a damage counter on all your opponent's Pokemon in play. So those are some of the ideas I had, but one of the by far the coolest ones that I thought of was Greninja. And this ability, Water Shuriken, I've used a lot of Greninja in the past. I really like this card. It's a really amazing card, and I've used it in like a Greninja Kingdra kind of deck, and with Miltank too, and it's just a really fun card to use, so I'm kind of glad that I get to use it here. Water Shuriken, once during your turn you may discard a water energy card from your hand. If you do so, put 3 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Pretty cool. We also have a card, Archie's Ace in the Hole. You can play this card only when it's your last card in your hand. Put a water Pokemon, Greninja's water, from your discard pile onto your bench, and then draw 5 cards. So we don't have to run the Frogadier line, or any rare candies for that matter. All we have to do is put 2 Greninjas in play, discard them with our 4 Battle Compressors, or a Juniper, or any means of discarding Ultra Ball. We also have Dowsing Machine. Any way you want to discard this Greninja from play, get that in discard as soon as possible, bring it into play as soon as possible, and then start hitting with Creepshow, so you can discard a water energy from your hand and get going. We also have a Deoxys in this deck. You'll see this deck is a little bit slow to set up, so I like to run Deoxys because if you go first, if you have Dimensional Valley to play, you don't have to play any energy. You can close encounter, draw some cards, which is kind of nice. Also, Overdrive Smash. With a Dimensional Valley in play, for 1 Psychic Energy, you can use this for 30 damage. That's perfect. And it has a pretty decent amount of HP. It's a basic Pokemon, so it's pretty easy to get into play. We also run 2 Shaman, just for consistency. And then we have our Ghastly, of course. 50 HP, also weak to dark, has 1 retreat cost. We're not really going to be using Sleep Potion at all, or Sleep Poison, I think that was called. And then we have Haunter. Haunter has a pretty unique ability, Gothic Fear. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may leave both active Pokemon confused, which is really nice, because if your opponent stays confused, and they don't switch to the bench or anything, they try to attack you, it's a 50-50 chance they have to flip a coin. If they get tails, they actually do 30 damage to themselves, which is the magic number we need in order to use Creepshow, which is really cool. Going through some other staples in this deck, we have 2 Acrobite, or actually 4 Acrobite, which is really cool. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck and discard one of them and then put one in your hand. It's just for consistency. Also, you can draw more cards and hopefully Greninja into the discard pile as soon as possible. Dowsing Machine is our aspect of choice. This is also an expanded. I don't think I mentioned that, but I think it might be pretty obvious with some of the cards that we're using in our deck. So this is an expanded deck. You can easily make it into a regular old standard format deck if you want to. We have Energy Retrieval. Put two basic energy cards from your discard pile into your hand. This is very useful. We're going to be using Water Shuriken a lot. We might have to discard some energy early on in the game, so you only play 4 Psychic, 4 Water, so you want to use those energy retrievals. We have Professor's Letter, again, to draw ourselves some water energies, or if you really need Psychic energies. We have ourselves Super Rod. This is to get either Pokemon or energy back into our deck, which is great. We run 2 Trainer's Mail. Look at the top 4 cards. Choose any supporter or not, any trainer you find there. 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Versus Seeker. We run 2 of these Archie's Ace in the Hole. 1 Lysandre, 2 Ends, 2 Professor Birch. You can easily cut this for another supporter of your choosing. I just like Birch. And then 3 Juniper, and then 3 Dimensional Valley. We have 8 energy in total, and that is the deck. It's a very fun deck. I really like it. We run a 4-3-3 Gengar line. You can up that. You can I've gone without the Trainer's Mail. I kind of liked having 2 in the deck, but you can go a 4-4-4 line and kind of cut the Trainer's Mail. It's up to you, and that's the deck in a nutshell. So let's go ahead and get on to the first round. Alrighty, here we go. First round of the tournament. We are playing a water fighting colorless deck, and oddly enough, my opponent's box, his deck box, is a Gengar deck box, so that's a little bit foreshadowing what he's going to play against. We also have the Gengar coin, if you saw that. Pretty cool coin. Fits the deck very well. I always like when you have a coin of a particular Pokemon that might be in the deck. It's kind of cool to have. And alright, so you only play 8 basic Pokemon in this deck. You play the 2 Deoxys, 2 Shaman, and 4 Ghastly. So you might be mulliganing a lot. Luckily enough, we got 2 Ghastly right off the bat here, which is really nice. You normally want to start with the Deoxys. It doesn't really happen that often. You could also make the argument for running 4 Deoxys to one, not mulligan as much, and then two, have a higher percent chance of starting with the Deoxys. You have kind of like a 40% chance at that point to start Deoxys, somewhere around there, and that'd be kind of cool. But we only run two, and this deck list isn't perfect by any means. Go ahead and change it to do whatever you want to it. This is just kind of a base of what I thought was the best for the deck. Our opponent is playing a Lugia EX, the new one from the second to last set that came out. I completely blanking on the name of it, but it's a pretty cool card. It's kind of acts like a old Mewtwo in a way, but it's a colorless Pokemon, so it can't hit for weakness. But it has its second attack is a lot better than the old Mewtwo's second attack. You can actually, it's a viable use for a card, so it's pretty good. He puts Fighting Stadium into play. We don't have any fighting Pokemon, so that's not going to really be too useful for him. We are going to use the Ultra Ball, discard the Lysandre and the Psychic Energy. We get to check our deck for the first time this game. We're probably going to take a Shaman, and then I'll check my deck in more details with the Battle Compressor here. So we're going to Battle Compressor. First things first, we want to definitely get those Greninja into the discard pile. Whenever they come into our hand, they're pretty much a dead card. It's just a card that you can possibly discard with an Ultra Ball or something like that, or Dowsing Machine. But you want to get those in the discard pile. I also like to get a Archie's Ace in the hole in the discard pile, just because we do run 4 Versus Seeker, and it's pretty easy to, not necessarily easy, but it's a doable option to Versus Seeker when it's the final card left in your hand, to go ahead and get that Archie's Ace in the hole. It's also pretty easy to, again, not necessarily easy, but doable, viable Dowsing Machine for that final Archie's card, and go ahead and get your Ninja into play. I'm reluctant to get Ghastly into play here, but my opponent's really going to start getting knockouts in a hurry. Lugia is a very quick and fast attacker, and so we're going to go ahead and Juniper using our supporter for the turn. And you really want to be really careful about bench space, because you always want to leave one spot open for Greninja, so just be careful about that. We don't see any Haunters in our hand, which is unfortunate, because we want to get as many Haunters into play turn 2 as possible. So that's kind of unfortunate, but we do have an N, we do have a Trainer's Mail to and an Acrobike, and our draw for the next turn to possibly get another supporter going on and get more resources. We could possibly get like an Ultra Ball or something like that. So it's not that bad of an issue that's not in our hand right now, because we are going to draw more cards next turn. But we do want to get those cards, we want to get those Haunters on the field as quickly as we possibly can. We see a Lucario EX on the board. We also see a normal basic Pokemon, which I believe is a Regigigas. Can't really see it. I don't think it really comes into play in this match. Generally, when you play this deck, you want to be knocking out the EXs, and your first 2 EXs that you want to knock out are generally their main attackers. So right now, Lugia is their main attacker. It's in play. It's you know, up there. So we want to try to stop that as best we can. We're gonna put a Ghastly that does not have energy into play. It's probably gonna die coming into their turn, so it's not going to last very long. We're going to go ahead and play the Trainer's Mail, see if we get a better supporter. I see a Juniper there, but I don't really want to get rid of my hand. I don't really want to discard my entire hand. I go for the Versus Seeker just so that we have less of a chance of drawing a Versus Seeker from the Acrobike, because we don't really want it. We do get a Battle Compressor and a Psychic Energy. Tough decision between the two, but I end up going for the Psychic Energy, and I can go ahead and put that onto Ghastly. Ghastly has his attack where he has for a coin flip, he can leave the opponent asleep and poisoned, I believe. It's 2 different special conditions. I think it's poison and asleep, similar to a laser. But we do not draw any Haunters, which is really unfortunate, because we could have potentially made Lugia confused, and that could have bought us a turn, possibly. It might also have made things a little bit easier for us down the stretch, and they're just going to continuously attach to their Pokemon, attaching to Lucario this time. And the Ghastly Gengar line does have a resistance to fighting, which is kind of nice. And we see another Ghastly bite the dust. I'll have to change up my strategy here and put in a Deoxys. We do have the energy retrieval. We also draw one, which is not really what we wanted to see either. But we get a energy retrieval here. We're going to put both the psych energies back into our deck. We're going to attach one to the Deoxys. We have the Dimensional Valley in our hand. Going to put that on the board again. And now we are going to go ahead and birch 4. And we'll see what the coin flip is. Heads, nice. We get 7 cards, which is great. And now we can Ultra Ball for our Haunter. And we have a Gengar in hand. And we also can potentially, if we play this correctly and we draw a decent card next turn, we can go ahead and get the Archie from the Versus Seeker and get Greninja into play next turn if we get everything that we want. So we're going to go ahead and Haunter here. And I probably should have discarded the Water Energy, but we didn't. So what can you do? And now we're going to go ahead and Overdrive for 30 damage. And now that Lugia has 30 damage on it, we're looking pretty. And now, as long as they don't get rid of the Stadium, which would be a bummer. I mean, we could attach a Water Energy to Haunter because it's a Psychic and a Colorless. And he's going to use a Team Flare Grunt there to get rid of my energy on the board, which doesn't really matter to me, per se. He's going to Aerial Ball or whatever for 60 damage, which is halfway there. And look at that. We get ourselves a Dowsing Machine. What a great top deck. And we can attach a Water Energy to Deoxys, which hopefully I do. And there we go. And now we can Dowsing Machine for discarding the 2 cards in our hand for the Archie's Ace in the Hole. Get that into play and get our Greninja ready to go. And there we go. There we have it. I also really like the full art card of the Archies. And we have 2 Greninja in the discard pile. Just choose one of them. Now we get 5 fresh cards. And we're looking pretty good at this point. I'm going to possibly Ultra Ball. I don't think I do, though. We're going to retreat into the Gengar. And we're going to start hitting for a lot of damage now. Well, not necessarily damage, but we're going to Creep Show, knocking this Lugia out because it had 3 damage counters on it. Get ourselves 2 prize cards, the first 2 prize cards for us, even out the prize trade. And we're looking pretty good. We have the Water Energy in our hand for whatever comes next. We see a Lucario coming into play, and I'm pretty sure there's no possible way that this thing can knock us out next turn, or this turn here, because we have a Resistance to Fighting. And even if it were to get another Strong Energy into play, it would only be hitting for 120 damage, and we have 130 damage on us. It could have a Muscle Band. That's a possibility there, but we don't see the Muscle Band. We only see a regular Fight Energy, so we have 100 damage on us at this point in time. We're going to go ahead and Water Shuriken for the first time in this game, putting 30 damage counters onto the Lucario EX, discarding a Water Energy from our hand. Now we can go ahead and get another Haunter on the board set up. We're going to discard a Battle Compressor and a Deoxys and get the last Haunter remaining in our deck. Put that onto the field. And next turn we can get the Gengar into play. I'm not going to play a supporter for this turn. And I'm going to click no just because I don't want to get confused myself. Put a Psychic Energy onto the Haunter. We can go ahead and search for a card with Trainer's Mail. I'm going to grab myself an Acrobike. And I might use it, I might not. We don't really have to use it at this point. It might not really be worth it. And there we go, Creep Show for a knockout. Getting ourselves another 2 prize cards, and we are looking pretty good. We get another Haunter from our prizes, but we don't really need it. The other 2 Ghastly are in the discard pile. We have not used our Super Rod yet this game, but I think it might be prized. And they're going to put a EX Pokemon into play. And for whatever reason my screen went black. There we go. Okay. Not for you guys, but for me. And alright, so we have Gengar here. You notice there are 3 Water Energy in the discard pile, so there's 1 remaining in our deck. And we could potentially just go ahead and Acrobike twice. And we just get it right off the back, so we don't even have to Acrobike twice. And that's going to be game. We can Water Shuriken onto this Rayquaza EX. Discarding the Water Energy from our hand, getting 30 damage onto the Rayquaza. My opponent says good strategy. I say thanks, and I say GG, and we creep show for the game, and that is that. So 3 straight attacks, 3 straight turns, and there you have it. That is the first round of the tournament. I hope you enjoyed. It was a pretty lengthy episode. The other 2 are going to be a little bit shorter. Game 3, I believe, if my memory serves me correct, was the best game out of all 3. I also have a quick clip online if you want to check that out. Go ahead and check out other videos, other decks from this playlist. So you see there, we only did 90 damage. Our biggest attack was 30. We took 6 prizes, killed 3 EX Pokemon, and there you have it. I'll see you ever next time. Peace.